And so then would you say, like from your perspective, that you would feel like if someone is polyamorous, that they're kind of on the queer spectrum as well?
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting question because I was in a group of like polyamorous people having this conversation, and as a gay man, 100%, I'm part of the queer community.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some people in the polyamory community aren't sure if that fits perfectly for them or not. So if they're straight and they only have that, like say for example, one of my friends who has a girlfriend and a wife, that's very different in his opinion to being in the queer space. But really, I feel like anything that is not heteronormative monogamy is the big queer space for the family.
Welcome to the Queer Quest podcast, your beacon of light and sprinkle of glitter in the queer community. I'm your host, 𝐏𝐨𝐥𝐸𝐵, CEO and founder of Queer Quest and a transformation coach for queer individuals. And together, we're embarking on a journey of transformation. Each week, we bring you a new training topic or connect you with visionary queer leaders in healing and coaching, diving deep into conversations that inspire growth, celebrate diversity, and empower you to live authentically. So wherever you are, settle in and let's get ready to unlock the vibrant potential within. This is where your quest begins. Hello, you fabulous souls, and welcome to this week's episode of the Queer Quest podcast. I'm your host, 𝐏𝐨𝐥𝐸𝐵, and this week we have a special guest to join us today. We've got Gerard Margetson, who is a life and abundance coach, who's also a gay man and also polyamorous. And today we're going to be having a deep discussion really around what polyamorous means and how that, enhances Gerard's life, right? So welcome to the podcast, Gerard.
Hello, very grateful to be here today. Loving being part of this.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you on here as well. I'd love for you just to give us a bit of a background around, what you do and, to give it a little bit of background around what you do, to introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, so I'm a life and abundance coach. I do a lot of work with people individually around specifically any area of life that they're dealing with. And I've been polyamorous since, going back a while now. I'm trying to think about, a good number of years now. And it's been a really interesting ride personally through like realizing it to like living it today as like a normal part of my life.
Beautiful. Maybe let's start with what would you class for people out there? What is polyamorous? What is polyamory, polyamorous? Like, tell everyone what that means to you for the people.
Look, the best way to describe it, there's actually two levels, which is there's ethical non-monogamy, which is anything outside of a traditional one-on-one relationship, which allows for everything from swingers to people who are in an open relationship or what I like to call monogamy. Then there's monogamy to polyamory, which polyamory is in the purest form, totally equal for all partners and different from say polygamy, which is very much about one partner having the control and all the other partners not having the same right as the other to have other partners or to expand the relationship in any way or have any control in that relationship. So that's one of the most important aspects, I guess, of polyamory. But the best way I can sort of describe it is so that everyone really understands it well is if you think of like gay, straight, bi on a spectrum from one end to another, and then you add gender to that, so you get your pansexual to all the different types, omnisexual to demisexual, so you get all that variety. So now we've got like this 2D plane. If you add a third access to that, you could be polyamorous as a triad where there's three people in a three-way relationship where each one loves the other, whereas other relationships are what are called a door hinge, which is one person with two partners but are equally connected to them, and to the varieties of what there are. Generally, the easiest way to explain it, though, is most people who are polyamorous will have their one partner here and the other partner there, or a number of partners that are all interconnected. And as soon as you start referring to people who you are connected to, we use the similar word for family as polycule. It's sort of like the network of people that you're connected to. So that sort of gives you sort of a big overview, but as you can see, it's a very vast space to go. There isn't one singular form of polyamory. There's
Yeah.
many different versions. And when you go ethical non-monogamy, it's like adding LGBT and then adding queer into that. It leaves a lot more space for people to be in a variety of other places that aren't exactly the same as just one or the other.
Gotcha. And so then would you say, like from your perspective, that you would feel like if someone is polyamorous, that they're kind of on the queer spectrum as well?
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting question because I was in a group of like polyamorous people having this conversation, and as a gay man, 100%, I'm part of the queer community.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some people in the polyamory community aren't sure if that fits perfectly for them or not. So if they're straight and they only have, that, like say for example, one of my friends who has a girlfriend and a wife, that's very different in his opinion to being in the queer space. But really, I feel like anything that is not heteronormative monogamy is the big queer space for the family.
I completely understand what you're saying, yeah.
But there is an aspect to which, I'll be honest with you, there was a very interesting space that I felt like I was in when gay marriage and the Yes campaign was working, and it was feeling like there was this conversation that was going around, which was, as gay people and lesbians and bisexuals, we want gay marriage. And then the No campaign was like, oh, what will happen next? We'll let people marry multiple partners and marry their dogs and marry buildings. And the Yes campaign was very much like, yeah, we will never support that. And I know exactly, as a gay person, I know exactly why we were saying that. But from the perspective of someone polyamorous, I got to be at my former partner's wedding as a guest and have this experience of like, this is never going to happen for me. Like in my lifetime, it's probably never going to happen where I'll get to marry one of my partners. I can have a commitment ceremony, but that's just like when commitment ceremonies were the only option that the gay community had once upon a time. So there's a lot of like difference and a bit of a gap sometimes. So sometimes it is we are part of the queer community, but we're very much a very separate part in very many ways.
I completely hear that, and I understand where you're saying that. And I guess it ultimately comes down to what each individual personally feels for themselves, right? So we can probably look at it and go, I see the same way. Like it's outside of the heteronormative view of a relationship. So it's queer to me, but I can also see someone who might be feeling, within their heteronormative sexuality that they go, I'm not queer. So I get both sides of it as well, and that makes.
I guess we more fit in the plus rather than the queer sphere. So in the LGBTQIA plus, I think we best fit in the plus more than we fit in the queer space. But as someone who's gay myself, I love being both a part of both worlds, because there's a very interesting point of difference, which is like, as a gay man, dealing with coming out, dealing with a lot of the things that we've dealt with in our community, we're ahead by like more than 50 years. The polyamory community in many ways is very happy in the space that they're in, but mostly you might know hundreds of polyamorous people and they don't have to tell you because they don't have to be out. There's no requirement for them to feel that they need to put themselves in that position. And where the community was back in like the 1950s is where the polyamory community is still based in like a lot. I'm really glad that we get to have this conversation because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who wouldn't know what this is or have very strong opinions. One of my favorite things is if I go out on a date, I've got a really low hit rate for like most of the time. If I've got someone who's not comfortable with polyamory, they'll tell me something like, I'm really sorry, I can't be in a relationship with you because I'm too jealous. And I'm like, it seems like a really common thing for someone to say, but I really get that I get it coming from a place of, I don't want to date someone who wouldn't want to date me anyway. But it's like, I guess similar to like bisexuality, that in a variety of ways, when someone's bisexual and then they go from dating a male to dating a female, you knew that was going to happen. That's a possibility. If someone dates me when I'm just single and then goes, oh my God, you've got another boyfriend all of a sudden, well, that wasn't going to ever be a surprise to you. That shouldn't be a surprise, but it often is because it's not been something that's front and center. Although the worst thing for me is like for gay representation, I can point to so many amazing role models and people who represent me as a gay man. The person who closest resembles me in the news media right now is Tiger King. And it's not something I'm very happy about because it's one of the only few polyamorous people who's gay in the world that's known for that. And I don't necessarily find myself in any way, shape or form related to him in any way, but he is best at the moment. He's the best example I could possibly point out on, like in any media that's out there.
This is why this conversation is important and why representation matters. Because again, if there's only one person out there in the media that you are aware of that is, like you said, gay and polyamorous, then it becomes like almost what they fit into that stereotypical view of what a gay polyamorous person is. And again, when you don't see yourself in that, it kind of feels a little bit isolating as well, right? I can imagine anyway.
Yeah, and then, like I say, the only other problem is with news media at the moment is we're still in the 1950s equivalent because, for example, back in the you had like Mr. Humphreys as a perfect example of a gay character. He was flamboyant. It was sort of played down and sort of under the thing. Or other gay men that, like Tom Hanks played a gay man in Philadelphia dying of AIDS and partner. And it wasn't until we got like Will Embrace and we got Queer as Folk and we got like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, where a gay man was seen as professional and were different from the stereotypes that had been placed on us for so long. At the moment, like if I point out any other types of like representation of the polyamory community outside of the gay side of it, you get Big Love, which is about the Mormons, which is polygamy, not polyamory as such. And then you get the politician who has this great moment of humor when you find out that the senator for New York has a husband and a boyfriend, and it's a point of comedy trying to hide it and trying to make fun of it. And that's sort of the way things are for us compared to, say, like the queer community that has literally moved leaps and bounds in representation and in, like, we used to be the butt of jokes. Like someone, going like that used to be a comedy routine.
Yeah.
Someone referring to like, this is my partner Sandy, like, even the voice and everything. And I don't mind if people be like that nowadays, but it's not the only way to be, is it? And it's similar to like in the queer community, we really haven't had the same struggles as the gay community. So we don't have the same problems of needing to be out and proud. So it does mean that we are slowly finding our voice, but it's very quiet at the moment. But as a gay man, it's really hard to be with that because I've got one side of me that my community in the queer space is very open and free. And then on the other side, we have freedom as long as it's quietly kept to ourselves in many ways. Like it's really hard to date in the gay space as a polyamorous person because of that, because it's such a different bar. Yeah.
I get that. Well, I'd love to hear about the journey for you to, I guess, coming to terms with you being polyamorous. Like, tell us about what it was like before you came out and how you figured out that you were, and like that kind of journey of like self-discovery there.
Well, I think the thing that's really funny is, how like when you go, before I knew that I was gay or before I came out, I had things that were obvious signs, like certain things in my life that were very obviously heading a certain way. I remember my first ever real boyfriend. We broke up not because of anything particular to the relationship. We broke up because I started falling in love with someone else and thought, well, I can't obviously do that because if I loved that person enough, I wouldn't have feelings for someone else. And that was sort of like the early days. I probably could have guessed, but I lived in a space of the way that everyone is you date one person and you commit to that person and that's the rest of your life there. And I didn't even want to have sex with people until I was in a committed relationship at one stage. But then after a big breakup, I think it was after 6 months after a really important breakup in my life, I was out there and enjoying my sexuality and meeting lots of people. But one particularly stood out amongst the rest. And what was really important was I decided when we talked about being in a relationship together, I said, can we have an open relationship because I'm enjoying the freedom that I have at the moment sexually. And he was very okay with that as well. And we started in an open relationship. And this is going to sound very similar to a lot of polyamorous people who are like in the self-discovery. During this time where I'm dating this guy who's extraordinary and I absolutely love and adore him still, I started falling in love with someone that I met up with for a one-off, and we were seeing each other quite regularly. And all of a sudden I had this problem because I'm feeling for this person whom I have a sexual relationship with. And I said to him, I'd really love to call you my boyfriend, but I have one of those. And he goes, you have one of those already, so you can't really do that. I went, okay, well, I'm going to go talk to my partner about this. And this is why I say he's the most amazing person, because he said, is this going to cause us a problem in our relationship? And I said, I promise you I'm not going to let this become a problem. And he went, okay, then you can date him too. And I went, oh, okay. I didn't think that was a conversation I could have had. And I thankfully did also have like 3 amazing friends who are in a polyamorous relationship who were also straight, who I could turn to and ask questions about, and they answered them really well. But I think even after dating the 2 partners at once, it really wasn't real for me until I told my mum. Like when I came out to my mum as polyamorous, as real, until I actually came out to her, I just tried to keep it on the low down that I had 2 partners. And she did the same thing that, a lot of us have experienced where I think she said something really lovely along the lines of, oh, that's all right. You'll probably grow out of this. You'll probably settle down with someone in the future. And I'm like, no, Mum, this is me telling you that that's actually never going to happen to me now. It's never going to be just the one person, or it might be, but it will never be like that for me forevermore. And after that, I also believed that there was no way, if you had 2 partners, you would be the same as me. There's no way that there's going to be any more. Because if someone says, I'm in a relationship, would you like to go on a date with me? I thought, how crazy would anyone have to be to want to date someone who's already got 2 boyfriends or 2 partners even? And then the 3rd and the 4th turned up, and I'm like, okay, I've actually got to really put my foot down and say, I'm starting to get to like days of the week. And that was where I was like, okay, I can't do more than 3 or 4 now. And it was a real big, I thought the prevention was itself, like just being polyamorous and being in multiple relationships. No, that wasn't the case, because I guess the difference that a lot of people would be wondering is the difference between like a sexual relationship and a romantic relationship. It's a very interesting space to be in, because the way that my relationship was with the first partner, the same as it was with the second. And this is a term we refer to this sort of organization like 1, 2, 3, 4 as poly hierarchy.
I was going to ask about that too. Yeah.
My current situation is I'm in what's called polyanarchy, which means that everything is 100% equal between all my partners. So that I think when I first came out as polyamorous, it had that because I was already in a relationship. So it was an addition. So this happens a lot for polyamorous people when they're first coming to grips with it, because they'll often have a husband, partner, wife situation, and then expand that relationship into another person. And then that person already is aware that there's an established pre-existing relationship. Whereas at this stage, when I've broken up with all of those 4 partners, have broken up with me, or me with them, and I'm currently in a situation of being in 3 relationships right now. And 2 of them are overseas, which is even harder to deal with, because this long distance relationship is sort of more of a strain on, I say in some ways. So the thing that's really interesting is like being in that space of realizing that the way that I am with one partner is not the way that I am with the other. And I feel like when people ask me a lot of questions, it's like if I have a glass of water and I start pouring it out into individual glasses, it's like I'm going to run out of water, or there's not enough to spread around. But I don't think love is like a glass full of water. I think it's more like a non-ending resource And as you expand it, it becomes more available in a way, because the best way to describe it is, if you love if you have you've got parents and siblings, for example, or cousins, you love them individually, not the same exact way as the other.
Yeah.
The way that all of my partners, the way that I care about them and my relationship with them is so vastly different to each other that I couldn't say that one's better. I couldn't say that one's worse, or the only thing I can say is different. And in some ways, I think a lot of people can understand polyamory. If you imagine you have a group of friends and you've got a friend that fulfills you in your going out and having a lot of fun, and they're good time friends, and another friend who just loves being like the person who just sits around and has a chat and gossips and has a lot of fun just doing that, but they would never want to be the person that goes out with you, or if they were, you wouldn't really want to take them because they're the person who wants to sit in the corner and not talk all night, or they're introspective and you wanting to be a lot of fun. So it's similar to that, where you can have a relationship that fulfills you on an intellectual level, on a spiritual level, on a going out and being social level. And obviously there's a physical connection to all of them, but the romance is different in each one. So to give you an example, when I was in that first 4 partners, my first partner that wanted to try out being polyamorous himself, and he started dating this guy, and then eventually turned around and said, I want to break up because I want to focus just being with this guy. And it was an extraordinary experience, probably the most difficult I've ever had in my life, which was, I'm not single and I've just been broken up with. And I love him dearly and I wish him all the best and he's currently got a beautiful partner. And I always, there's no concern of, with him, I could walk into a room and catch up and give him a big hug and it would be the same as what it was before. It's just, I don't get to have the intimacy with him that I used to have.
Yeah.
That's for his partner, right? So, but then I thankfully had this extraordinary friend who worked for Lifeline, who when I told her about it, she goes, it's okay to be sad. And at that moment in time, I didn't feel like I was allowed to be, because I had 3 boyfriends and I was broken up with. I didn't feel I had the right to be upset about it. And so it was this harrowing experience until she said that. And then I burst into tears and I came to terms with what I was dealing with.
You mourned the relationship that you had. And
because he was the first partner, that undid the hierarchy, which meant, who's the person I go to ask questions if this is okay? And the second partner was certainly not ready for that and didn't want to be that. And so it forced me into working out how to deal with that. So yeah, there is a little bit of, I think the thing that's really interesting is when you ever discuss polyamory, it sounds really complicated. In reality, it's actually really easy, because it's just dealing with things as they come, which is what you do in any, I'm sure if I said that to anyone, everyone's like, yeah, that's what anyone does in any relationship. You deal with stuff as it comes up. And it's the same with the rest of us, right? But it's just this thing of, at that moment in time, it was very difficult to deal with and come to terms with. And even telling one partner who was joyously excited because he went from partner number 4, which he didn't like because he was Asian background and wanted to be 3.5, so he wasn't 4. He goes, oh, good, I get to be 2.5 now. And I'm like, that is not helpful in the space of being upset. And I had another partner who was polyamorous himself, and his reaction was the best, where he said, are you okay? I know that you and Nathan are broken up, but how are you okay? Are you dealing with this at the moment? I went, oh, I so needed you to ask me that. I'm even at this moment feeling like the wonderfulness of how he said that. Whereas the second partner, he was like, oh, does that mean I have to make decisions now? I'm like,
because everyone's a different personality and everyone handles things separately, and that's life. So you can't, if you were wanting to have the exact same relationship as you had before, then you wouldn't be searching for something else that was giving you something different, right?
Yeah, and it left a big gap in my life because it did have a balancing effect, and things changed dramatically within 12 months for me. But I think now I don't think I would deal with it in the same way. That was my first ever experience of being in that larger group of people. And like I say, I probably would commit to, I'd really have to ask myself a lot of questions before I commit to an additional relationship at the moment. But given that I've got two partners who are not based in Australia, it's possible that I could have another partner right now, but it would come down to like really asking some hard questions about how to balance that out a lot better.
That makes sense. And yeah, I can imagine that would come with a lot of different emotions and feelings. And when we're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, I'd love to delve deeper into that for you. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with Gerard in just a moment. Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey towards love and happiness? Introducing the 21-day Gay-Man's Guide to Love and Happiness. This isn't just a course, it's a pathway to discovering your true self, overcoming challenges and embracing happiness. Join hundreds of gay men who found joy and freedom. Learn from 𝐏𝐨𝐥𝐲𝐚𝐫𝐶, a coach with 20 years experience and a journey like yours. For a limited time, get this life-changing course at 75% off with a 100% risk-free guarantee. There's nothing to lose, but so much to gain. Your new life is just a click away. Enroll in the 21-day Gay-Man's Guide to Love and Happiness today. Visit theglobalpridecollective.com and start your journey towards a happier, more fulfilled you. Or thinking about it, like, do you look for a third relationship, or how do they happen? Like, how would you find, say, a second, third, or fourth person as a polyamorous relationship? Because from what I'm hearing, and maybe I'm listening from this perspective, some people might think, oh, well, maybe you're not satisfied with your partner, you're looking for something else. What would you say to those people, and how would you go about it for yourself? Because I'm really curious to hear about that.
Well, look, I think one of the first things I probably start with is I'm on Grindr like the rest of it, like most people. But my place that I'm coming from is I'm more looking for what the connection is going to be. So one thing that works really well for me, and I share this with a lot of my clients as well when I'm talking about relationships, it's one of those things of I don't have an agenda of what I want. Like I might be out there for like a number of things, but I'm interested in what connection there's going to be. And sometimes I'm talking to someone and I'm having a great conversation and they are just happy to chat and they're not really looking for anything. And that can be really annoying when you're in that space of life, you're wanting to actually do something or you want to be in a relationship with someone, but they just want to. And it's like, but actually for me, that's actually perfect because I know what they want and I'm very happy to enjoy that conversation and that's all we have. Another person might, start referring sexual things and that goes towards, meeting them. And then I might have another person who has a lot of questions and wants to consider a relationship with someone who's polyamorous. And even if they're just considering it, not wanting to be in it, but just even wanting to understand it a little bit better, it ends up being very similar to this in having just a conversation to sort of understand there's a lot to it. Like, for those of you who aren't aware, there can be a bit of a dictionary gap between people who know a lot about it and people who don't. Like we've already just discussed two terms like polyanarchy and polyhierarchy, but that's sort of like the beginnings of it. There's tons more. I can refer people if they're looking to find out more information. There's a really great book out there that's been updated multiple times and it's called 𝐿=+. And I can highly recommend anyone who's...
I've heard of this book before. Yeah, I've heard of it.
I can highly recommend it because it's not the be-all and end-all of polyamory. It's more for people... It's that ethical non-monogamy, that greater space. And the other one that would probably be similar is the relationship escalator. I would guess there's probably 1,000 books that you could go looking for, but they're probably two to start off with if you're wanting to immerse yourself in information. But from the perspective of like actually going out and meeting people, most of the people I've ended up in relationships with have come from just meeting them face to face or connecting with them, and they just really love that connection. And I have an option that a lot of people don't necessarily have, which is if you met someone who's already in a relationship, that already has defined how far that relationship and connection can go. Mine has a bit more leeway because my partner isn't scared of me going and being with someone else or having sex with someone else because he knows at the end of the day I'm going to come back to him over and over and over again, and I will always choose him as much as I choose my other partners as well. and vice versa with all three of them. So they know that they're not having to worry. But one of the things that's really interesting is, I guess we were going to come around to this path eventually of jealousy.
Yes.
Jealousy is something that comes up in all relationships. My favorite way of explaining how I deal with jealousy with my partners is, I use Harry Potter. There's an episode in one of the movies where there's this thing called a boggart, and it represents the thing that you fear the most. And the best way to outdo it is, or to get to scare it away, is make it turn into something. I think the spell that they cast is ridiculous, and the professor says, and you have to laugh. It has to be something that makes you laugh at it, and the laughter kills it. And I think I had an experience where one partner was going on a date, and the guy he was going on a date with was so much younger than me. He was more attractive than me. He was the bottom. I'm more top verse, so he had that on his side. Like, he was just perfect for my partner in every way. And when he's going out on this date and I'm stuck at home alone, I'm like, oh my God, he might leave me. Oh, and then I'm like saying that out loud to myself and going, oh, he might leave me. He literally lives here. He's coming home anyway. You're being such a drama queen. Oh, you're being so ridiculous, so silly. Oh, what if he has an amazing experience and he tells you all about it? Isn't that horrible? No, it isn't. It's fantastic. I'm really happy for him. I want him to, feel happy in life. And that's true of everyone in my life, not just partners, but every friend of mine. I want to see them happy and fulfilled. So it's that thing of like having a joke at myself in my own expense of being like, because if you think of it, anytime that you're ever jealous, if you say it out loud for another person, or someone says something where they're so jealous, they're like, I can't believe he looked at this. Oh, and you're like, yeah, that's okay. He looks at girls. He's going to look at girls. Okay, but that's not a problem. But for them, it's really dramatic, really important, significant. And it's letting go of that significance and just being with the jealousy is recognizing it as, like, if you don't have jealousy, it's one of the signs that you might be, what is it? Like American Psycho.
A sociopath.
If you don't have emotions, you might have a bigger problem to deal with there, right? So if you don't deal with jealousy, it's something that just comes up, and it's something that just will eventually dissipate. It becomes that thing of like I've got currently right now, my partner who lives in England has a new partner who also has a partner. And I haven't heard from him since Christmas. So I'm a bit concerned at the moment because he's been really busy and working, but he's also been with his new partner and he's in that very honeymoon stage. So he's a lot happier, and he's also in England, whereas I'm not. So there's a lot of concerns for me. And I also have to let go of those concerns. And no, I will hear from him when I hear from him, and we'll catch up and connect when he's free. And he's studying, working, and into relationships. So he's, give him a bit of leeway. And that's the way I deal with it. It's like, it's just deal with it as there's going to be jealousy, there's going to be concerns, but to let go of it and just be present in this moment right now. And honestly, most jealousy is hilarious when you say it back to yourself without significance. It's quite hilarious. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Because there's a lot in what you asked.
No, I forgot what I answered because I was listening to what you said, but I feel like I got the answer. so I haven't got any further question to that part there. I'm curious now to understand when it comes to you being in relationships with multiple people. Now, I know that when you said that your first relationship, you had to talk to him about the second, etc., and then he tried polyamory, he realized it wasn't for him, and of course he then is now in a new relationship. Do you find that, as you're going into new relationships, as a polyamorous person, do you find that you only date other people who are polyamorous? Like, how does that come up with that, like, there as well? Because for that, like, because imagine a gay person only going to date a gay person or a bisexual person, but then it's like a polyamorous going to date a polyamorous and a monogamous person, because it becomes a bit confusing there as well.
Well, it's a very interesting thing. I think I'm a bit outside of the norm because from most of my friends that are polyamorous in straight world, to them that is actually quite normal to mostly date other people who are polyamorous because they understand where you're coming from, they know where you're at. Whereas I predominantly seem to accidentally date most people who have for themselves never been polyamorous. And I think the best way of explaining that too is you can't become polyamorous. You were always that. Just like you can't become gay. Like no one can make you gay. No one can make you bisexual. No one can make you straight. But I have partners who are definitely not. I don't think they would see themselves as someone capable of dating a third or fourth person or a second person even. Whereas quite frequently, I seem to date people who are open to being with a polyamorous person, and they might discover that they're polyamorous in the process when they date someone else because they have that option. But I think it's only if you've got the opportunity can you find out for yourself. Like someone listening to this right now could have the question in their head, am I polyamorous?
Yes.
The only way you're really going to discover it is when you're in a situation where it's even a possibility. Because it's hard to necessarily bring that up with a current partner. But when you're single and you're looking, it's very easy to start a relationship with that foundation being honest and open. Like I say, if you are talking to someone who isn't polyamorous, it's a very difficult conversation because it's a learning curve. It's a very steep learning curve. There's also, I will tell you, one of the best things, my current partner who is currently over in Vietnam at the moment with his family, when we first met, one of the things that I did was I told him everything up front, made sure he knew what he was getting himself into if he wanted to. And when we started dating, one of the things that I put in place, and it's one of the keys of any good relationship is I would have these conversations like, how's being in a relationship with me going? And I'd talk like I'm like in a third person, like in, how's that relationship with Gerard going? And he would go, well, this is what I'm dealing with at the moment, and I'm unsure about this, or I really love this at the moment. I'm really enjoying being able to meet other people and being able to do other things when I feel like it. And then telling me that being able to have that open, free communication, I think that's one of the main things that if I don't have good communication, then you don't have trust. Because one of the things, like I discovered very early on when I first came out, my second partner, I said to him one day, he goes, what are you doing on the weekend? I said, I'm going out with a friend to the movie. It's a very nice white lie. I was going out with one of my other partners. And then I came back to see him that next week. And he goes, oh, how was your week? And I went, really good, but I feel really bad because I lied to my other partner about taking one of my other partners to the movies. And he goes, no, that wasn't him. That was me.
You lied to me.
Yeah, the problem is if you try to lie, you've got to remember, who did you lie to? What was it about? And how do you keep that lie going? And what other lies do you need to tell? And it becomes too complicated. I think being gay has really helped being in the open space of being free to be able to be yourself. But I think being polyamorous has really brought me down to, there is literally nothing that anyone can ask me that I wouldn't feel comfortable being able to openly and honestly say, because it's got to the point where I don't have the space to lie. I don't have the option. I feel like you can get away with some teeny weeny white lies occasionally in any relationship. But in polyamory, it is extremely hard because you've got to have either a photographic memory of what you said to everybody and when you said it and how you said it and what that means to the whole thing. After that one time that I got caught out, I was like, I know that this is impossible to deal with anymore. And I guess the other aspect of that 100%, and that's not just for like polyamorous relationships. That's if you don't have if you have a monogamous relationship and you have these few little white lies that you get away with, you're only getting away with them now. You're not getting away with them forever. And the same thing's true with, I guess I can't go to bed on a fight. Like I need to resolve all problems there and then. I don't get the opportunity because what if I go home and I don't see my partner for a week and then he doesn't want to see me because he's pissed off with me about a fight that we had last week? I might not even remember, and he might not even remember why we're angry with each other, but we're still angry. So we literally have to resolve all communication there and then, which sometimes is really difficult when you just really want to go to, or you're really angry and you really need to let that anger go to be able to even have a conversation about it. But I found that that's the only way to do it, because relationship will end, because unlike a monogamous relationship where it's almost like, aha, we're together, you can't get out of this that easily. In a polyamorous relationship, the slightest thing could be the end of the relationship if I don't deal with it straight away.
And also I could imagine that you could see how one relationship can affect another relationship, because it happens normally, right? Like if you're, in your relationship with your partner and you're fighting with them and you go hang out with your friends, you're going to bitch and moan about that partner, right? So curious to understand how you navigate situations like that, where you have multiple relationships and how one relationship is coming into, the other one.
Yeah. I think I would never probably have a conversation.
Or do you have limits where you don't talk about, we're not talking about each other partners, or we tell each other everything, because, there's probably so many fine lines that you can have in these things, right?
Yeah. And I think this is where it comes down to me specifically versus the rest of the polyamorous world. I think one of the things that's really interesting is we have the thing that we use the term boundaries rather than rules. So it's usually like we'll have conversations where we go, what's going to hurt or harm you emotionally or physically in being in this relationship? And then looking at what we can put in place to protect against that. And that's one of those sorts of conversations. Like one partner might want to know everything that's going on. Another partner might like to live in a nice little, neat little bubble where, okay, when we're together, you're 100% with me, so that's really great. I actually don't really want to know about what's going on in your other relationship. I don't want them to have any effect on our relationship. And then you might have someone who wants a combination of a bit of both, where they're like, you're never allowed to speak negatively about your partners in front of me, because if I ever have to talk to them, I don't want to be in a position of hating them or liking them based on what you have to say. So it really depends on the partner to how the relationship between how to communicate. You have to have open and honest communication, but then there's limits to how open and honest you really want to be about those things. So like,
the boundaries are super, super important in polyamorous relationships. And each relationship is going to have different boundaries.
Yeah. And the thing that's super important about boundaries is compared to rules. If partner crosses a boundary, that they have the ability to communicate that in a way that they're not punished just for telling you the truth. So for example, and I think this is very much similar to a lot of people that I've spoken to. If I'm in a situation where I or my partner has an STI, it can happen. I want to be able to know about that immediately, rather than them being worried about telling me and then I find out myself, rather than them telling me. And so that actually happened. I literally was telling a friend about this, and it happened the next day. And my partner came to me, rang me up and said, I'm really sorry, I've just found out that I've got this. And I went, okay, no worries. And that meant I'm off the market for playing around until I find out the results of my test. I have to go get tested. I've got to find out for myself. I found out that I didn't have it. I must have missed it somehow. But it was one of those things of my partner felt so comfortable that he could just ring me up and tell me immediately. And though that may have had consequences for me and for him in many ways, him being able to tell me that was so much more important than what that means or the significance of what I had to deal with. Like I had to cancel certain plans and dates with certain people that I had planned, because I didn't want it to be something that I definitely don't want to be in a relationship that I'm being someone who spreads an STI to all my partners. I don't want that. So obviously that's something I had to deal with, but I so loved that he felt the comfort that he was going to tell me, and that wasn't going to cause a problem. We've had a fight over someone that he's like, that person has had a really negative impact on past relationships that I've been in. I don't want you seeing that person. And I'm like, I have a concern about you telling me who I can and cannot see, because where's the end of the line on that one? But then sitting down, having that conversation and understanding why specifically this person, that meant, okay, I can't promise that I will never see this person again, because if I'm walking down the street, I'm not going to be rude to them. And if I sit down to coffee with that person that they don't want me to see, I know that the next thing I have to do is pick up the phone, call him, my partner, and say, hey, I need to let you know what just happened. It's not something that I plan to do again. It's not something that I'm going to do again, but I'm letting you know it happened. So then I have to deal with the consequences of if you're upset about that, and I've got to deal with the consequences of what that means for our relationship. But the really good thing is, because I know I can do that and he can do that, it doesn't mean that what either of us has to communicate will end the relationship. And that is probably the most important thing that I can point out about that. That level of communication is not just honest and not just open, but I know that he's got my back. And even as angry or as frustrated he might be in me communicating something to him, likewise with me, we can expect that I will listen to what he has to say and deal with what we're dealing with, because my commitment to being in a relationship with him is more important than what I'm dealing with about. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I've got a question actually that has popped into my mind as well. Has there ever been a time, and I'm sure there might have been, but or maybe not, where all of these people that you're dating have been in the same room at the same time? And how does that go when you are in situations like that? Because again, I can imagine, like I said, if you've got a relationship, you go out with your friends, you're going to go up and you're going to kiss your partner. But if you've got 4 partners, how does that go with each and individuals? Like, what are the things that what people would think about or do when stuff like that happens?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because when I first came out as polyamorous and I had three partners at the time, I tried getting 2 of them in the same room, and the only thing they had in common was me and smoking, and both of them were trying to quit smoking. So that was really hard to work. I was like trying to make it happen where they're all in the same room, to see what it would even, like, how would I even deal with that? And so we had a dinner party, I had the 2 partners there, and was trying to balance that. They didn't really care about so much, because they knew, everyone knew about each other.
Yes.
But they didn't really have anything else to talk about other than, so you're dating Gerard. Oh, okay. I will admit, one of my favorite things that has ever happened to me in my life was there was a New Year's Eve party they went to, and most of the people that were at this party were former partners. And I mean, I can even hear some people who, like, even hearing this would be like, "Oh my God, I would hate to be in a room." Like, when I was young,
I'm laughing because I could see a skit of this or something.
Yeah. When I was younger, it was like I walked into a room and I'm like, I've slept with the majority of people in this room. That's uncomfortable. And then I was in this situation where everyone in the room, every male in the room, I could say, I'd say about like 60% of the people in that room were former partners. Someone that I truly loved and respected, and the conclusion of that relationship did not end that feeling and experience. Just the intimacy ends, obviously. Mm-hmm. And what was really interesting was my current partner sat down with my former partners, and they started talking about things about me that they had in common, like, oh, Gerard's very messy. And he's like, oh, yeah, let me tell you, but Gerard was dating me. This is what he used to be like. And they all had this lovely little conversation amongst themselves. The thing that was really interesting was it wasn't very threatening, because I didn't see it. They weren't doing it from a place of like if you had a group of friends.
They weren't bitching about you, going, oh, that bitch, she's a dirty cow and she doesn't clean up after. They were just, yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah.
Oh, he leaves the plates in the thing, and I hope that I'm not like that anymore, but, I'd let my partners tell you about that. But it was this thing of like this moment where, similar to like a group of friends all talking about the fact, like being the same way and like having a bit of fun, having that conversation, it was like, oh, is Gerard still like that? Oh, when we were together, that was the same, and this and that. And I really felt so comfortable, because I even to this day still feel comfortable with any of my former partners talking to my current partners and having a conversation where they go, can I get some help? This is what's going on in the relationship right now. You know Gerard as much as I do. What do you think? And like I say, I'm very lucky that I think when the relationship has ended, like I say, the intimacy ends, but the thing that made me want to be connected to this person, that connection hasn't ended. So I'm very lucky that I'm one of those sorts of people that seems to have a variety of people that I've dated in the past. I'd rather call them former partners than exes, to be quite honest. But all of them, like I'm catching up with another one of my former partners this weekend, because he's wanting to catch up. I haven't seen him for a while, and he's been traveling during Christmas break. And so we're going to get to see each other. And there's no like problem or hatred or frustration. And, you know, like I said, I've been able to be a groomsman at a former partner's wedding, and not just turning up, but actually being someone who stands for his relationship and wanting it to go well. And when they had fights and problems, both of them could call me, the new partner with my former partner, like they could both call me and say, I just want to have a bitch fest about this partner. And I'm like, go ahead. Look, I'm never going to use that to my advantage or anything like that. I'm just going to let you have your piece. But if you're asking me for advice, that's a different conversation. But if you just want to let out the frustration, have that conversation, no worries. And then know that I'm not going to go to the other person, you know what he said to me. It's not going to be like that, because I'm out for their success and happiness. And I'm like that for every former partner I have. I want to see them do the best in life. And if I can do anything to help with that, I'd love to offer. So it's one of those things. But yeah, I've been in many situations. There are probably one or two partners that I think I would find difficult being in the room with, but it's more of a clash of personality now than it was then.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't think I would ever be in a situation where I would feel worried. As to my current partners, obviously can't be in the same room because they're currently in different countries right now. But if they ever had that opportunity, I don't think I would be too concerned. And when I have been in a situation where multiple partners have been I had one partner who met all the other three, but oddly some before and after some during the relationship, it's mostly all the other two after the relationship. So he really only got to sort of meet each of them. And he found it very interesting as they're nothing like me. They don't look like me. They don't act like me. They don't have the same interests as me. And I'm like, that very much is a part of the way it works, is I'm not looking for someone to replace my partner. I'm connecting with another person, and the connection is so powerful that the reason why I'm connecting to them has nothing to do with anyone else in my life. And again, I guess it's very similar to like having a group of really close-knit friends that you love them dearly and you want to see them happy. There's this wonderful word that I probably pull out of the polyamorous dictionary, which is compersion. And it's this experience of being happy for your partner's connection to someone else. The happiness that you feel to see them happy. And I think most people can understand that if you've ever been at a friend's wedding or a friend's, you know, you found one of your friends, closest friends come up to you and goes, I'm totally in love with this person. And you're like, so happy for them. You're not happy because you're in a relationship or you're not jealous of them being in a relationship. It's that moment where your friend is happy with the person they're with and you want to see them happy. That's the same with me for all of my partners. So I want them to be happy. So when for example, that first breakup, he wanted to experiment, try and be polyamorous. I didn't believe he was polyamorous right from the start, but he wanted to try it. And who am I to stop him? And if he was successful, great. And if he wasn't, okay. When he broke up, I could see what he wanted was a one-on-one relationship, and I couldn't provide that. And it's sad.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
Because I really wanted to stay in that relationship. It was time for him to try that out and experience that and find out for himself that's what he wanted. Now, as far as I know, he hasn't ever, I don't know if he's in an open relationship, but I don't think he is. I don't think he's ever tried being polyamorous again. I don't think he's ever dated another polyamorous person. He might be in an open relationship, I don't know. But I would say the best thing about any of my past relationships, there's a bridge still left open. There's not like we could get back together. Like I'm really clear that relationship has ended and ended for the right reason. And the same with all my former partners. There's no, I'd say there's some people that especially one that like moved overseas was the reason we broke up. I think now, especially being in a relationship that I never imagined that I'd be in a long distance for me is more weird for me than being in a polyamorous relationship with multiple partners. So just being in that situation where someone's so far away and I don't get to see them physically, that's been more of a difficult experience than trying to deal with being in multiple relationships. But yeah, I think that's one of the places. Yeah, but and in all that.
Okay. And so you've talked a little, you mentioned a little bit about, when you came out to your mother and, she kind of was like, you'll grow out of this kind of thing. Curious to understand for you, what are like the negative experiences you've had when people have found out about you? Like, what do people normally say? How do people normally take it? Or do people just mind their own business? Because in my opinion, probably people don't mind their own business that much, but there's probably a mixture of the two.
Well, like I say, the best part is of being polyamorous. There's nothing physical or obvious, so I don't have to necessarily tell anyone. So majority of the time, most people don't know. But I've just found being open as a gay man has made it a lot easier to be open as a polyamorous person. So look, yes, 100%. Some of the coolest and horrific things I've ever heard. I have one friend who still to this day refuses to call it polyamory and goes, "How's your polygamy going?" And it's like, that's as nice as saying, I hope I don't mind saying like the F word, but like, that's like saying to a gay man faggot. Like, you can own that, but it's not, it's like, oh no, the best one would be like, actually the equivalent would be calling a gay man a pedophile or just calling him pedo, right? A polygamous person is someone who in Australia right now would be considered a criminal because it is under the law of Australia and many other nations in the world. It is illegal to marry more than one person. You're a bigamist and you can be jailed for that. So technically, the difference between calling someone polyamorous and calling someone polygamous is like saying you're a criminal. Now, he's not doing that from necessarily being mean, but he refuses to get the word right. And that has been one of the harder things to deal with I still care for this friend, and I have to let go of I have to deal with whether I accept his behavior or I choose not to accept it. And I think that's the best way of being it with everything. But I've had one friend who told me that when I first came out as polyamorous, he told me that I was being greedy. I'm sure that there's a lot of bisexual people who will often go, yeah, me too. So yeah, polyamorous people often get being greedy, which I'm like, I'm hardly being greedy. I'm being generous. It's like I'm allowing my love to expand beyond one person. So you're dating one person, you're a bit greedy. I don't want to pick on monogamy because it's actually quite respected. But it's not for me. And just like being straight is not necessarily, or being heteronormative is not what most people on here are listening. Like that's not for them either. You can't put me in the same peg that, and I look, one of the things that I come from, and I had the great experience of like coaching someone who was coming out. And my favorite thing that I said to him is, how long have you known that you were gay? And he goes, well, since such and such age. And I went, how old are you now? And we worked out it was like 10 years that he's known that he's gay. And he wanted to come out to his mum. And I went, when you come out to your mum, you need to have a lot of compassion because you've got 10 years, but she's getting 10 seconds. So whatever she says back to you, understand it's not from a place of being mean or angry with you or hating you or any problems, but it's probably going to come from a place of trying to get her head around everything in 10 seconds. You've had 10 years to have every question you need answered. And so I stand from the same point of view. If someone gets really uppity about me being polyamorous, what's that? But that's nothing to do with me. I don't need to be offended by them because I've had years. I don't think I know every answer to every question about this potentially either, but I've certainly had a lot more time than whoever's coming at me with like I said, even this friend who uses, I guess it's not technically a slur because it's actually a technical term, but it's definitely not, I would not classify myself as polygamous in any shape or form or wish to be ever. I've had friends who use the word harem to describe my relationship with my partner. And I'm like, okay, if you want to use that word, it's not.
I guess it kind of comes to on the same spectrum of people like with their pronouns, like he, him, they, them, she, her. You want to be called what you feel you are. And when someone calls you outside of that, it makes you feel a certain type of way, whether it's intentional or not, right?
And that's the other thing. There's a lot of people who will be like, oh, I'm so sorry I got that wrong. And they're trying their best to give say the right words, I guess. And I don't mind. I think the best thing is, like you say, is it's best to be just like freed up and just, there's some people who it's intentional, and when it's intentional, it's more about them than it ever is going to say about me. And so I don't worry about it because it doesn't offend, it doesn't need to offend me, because why should it?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, my favorite thing is, you know how like, people who've never met a gay person and they have all these questions like, what are you going to wear at Mardi Gras? You're going to wear you're going to dress in drag? And you're like, no, I'm not a drag queen, and I don't have any interest in doing that. I don't have a problem with drag queens, but like, that's just not me. You get that same sort of equivalent questions in the polyamory community, like, oh, so you just fuck everyone, do you? Oh, well, I had one friend who assumed that because I'm polyamorous means it's like that 60 free love, you just have sex with everyone. I'm like, sorry, I have standards and conditions of what type of people I want to date, and I don't want to just necessarily have sex with absolutely everyone or date absolutely everyone. I would definitely, and also, when you date anyone, you don't go on one date and then you're in that, heavily committed marriage sort of relationship. You have to get to know the person, and it's the same with polyamorous people as much as straight and gay people. It's like, it's true that you have to get to know the person. So if the only thing you get to know about me is I'm polyamorous, well, then you're not dating me, really. You have to get to know the person behind, like, I'm not just gay, I'm not just polyamorous, I'm me, and you have to get to know me. And it's the same for everyone. You have to get to know the person that you're with, not just the monikers that connect you. Like, it's easy for me to say polyamory, so you understand what it means. It doesn't mean who I am.
Of course, you're. That's why I love, the term queer, because I find that ultimately at the core of it, it's actually just becoming who you truly are. Yeah. Whether that's on the spectrum of gender or sexuality or, monogamy, polygamy. Well, I don't know what that spectrum might be called, but like at the end of the day, it's the core of just accepting and being authentic to who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, the thing that's really fascinating is I'm only one very small part of the vastness of what there is out there in what is a ethical non-monogamous person. Just like you said, that the wider queer community is so much more interesting than just the LGBT. And it's the same with the polyamory community. I would love the possibility of being in a triad or a three-way relationship, and it's not ever happened to me, and I know people who it happened to, and you go, that's fantastic. It's maybe not what I'm necessarily going for, because I am very clear that necessarily what fulfills me in one partner doesn't make that connect with that person. So it's one of those things. Even my partner, who, like I say, is Vietnamese, his background, he's like, the people that are interested in you, Gerard, are not necessarily the people who are interested in me, and vice versa.
Correct.
It's very hard. Yeah. It's very hard for us if we were even considering that idea. And I went, I understand that. Like I say, at the end of the day, it comes down to not everyone that I'm going to be attracted to is the same people that my partner's going to be attracted to. And sometimes they can be. But yeah, I don't know. From there, it can be anything that it needs to be.
I get that. Well, Gerard, I should say, appreciate you coming on here today and sharing your own experiences and your vast knowledge on polyamory, and all that includes, because I think you really, kind of given us a bit of a masterclass on that. So I appreciate the level of knowledge that you have and just the vulnerability you had to share your own experiences with us, because I think, like I said, people out there who are listening to this, who may be questioning themselves, just really curious about it, I think you've really given them some stuff to really, really think about deeply.
Thank you.
Awesome. And Gerard, how can someone find you? Like, if there's someone out there who is curious and wants to reach out to you, like I said, I know that you're a coach as well. How can someone reach out and get to know more about what you do, or even just ask you some questions?
Oh, sure. The best way probably is, I've got, my website is Abundance Call. So abundance, the word call together.com.au. From there, you can find me in a variety of spaces. I'm really easy to get a hold of. If I don't respond straight away, you can always leave a message or text me, or I think there's 100 different ways that my website allows you to get in contact, whether it's call or reach out to me. So yeah, please if anyone feels like they want to ask me some questions, I'm also on Facebook. I'm Gerard Margetson. MARGTSON, and Gerard is GERARD. I know, by the way, I totally answer to Jared and Gerard, so you can say either in place. It's totally fine. And most of my friends fall into one or other camp as well. So yeah, 100%. But yeah, you can find me on any of those places. I'm on social media, so easy to find.
I'll link all those. I'll link your website in the comments below. So if you're someone listening to this, click on the link. That'll be in the comments, and you'll be able to go to Gerard's website anyway.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And anyone out there, if you've got questions, comments, or even want to share something, you know how to find me. You can comment below or reach out to me on social platforms. And if there's any questions that I need to pass on and ask Gerard, I will ask him and get back to you as well. So thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm going to be back next week with another episode of the Queer Quest podcast. Until then, always remember that you've got this and I've got you. Bye for now.
You are feeling lonely and depressed. Maybe you are struggling to make any queer friends. You have had no luck in finding love, or you feel like the black sheep of your family. Embrace your journey towards joy and love with our queer transformation coaching services tailored for the LGBTQ+ community. We're here to guide you from the shadows of loneliness into the light of connection and self-acceptance. Our coaching is more than a service. It's a transformative experience designed to uplift, empower, and celebrate your true self. Discover the freedom of living authentically, strength in vulnerability, and the power of unconditional self-love. With us, you'll learn to weave joy into the fabric of your daily life, build meaningful relationships, and foster a supportive community around you. Let's embark on this journey together, where every step is a step towards a more joyful, loving you. Let's create a world where you live authentically and love abundantly. Your journey towards a brighter, joy-filled future starts here. Check out the link in my bio to book your first session free.